remove the wheel, 19mm socket. And just remove the tire. If you have these clips, they're put on by the factory. They're just lock tabs to keep the drum on. So you're just going to cut them off. You do not reuse them. So I'm just going to pick a pair of cutters, pull one of the ears back, and just twist it. So now the drum is kind of frozen on there. It happens right in here on this axle hub where it meets. So I'm just going to take a hammer. First thing you got to do is take the top part of the shoes off. You don't really have to take the shoes all the way off. Take the two top springs off. Take that slack cable off, set it aside. You can pull that out like that. Make sure you put a catch bucket underneath because brake fluid is going to come out. Loosen up the line fitting. Yeah, see, we already have fluid dripping now. And take that line completely out. When I pull the line out, I like to raise it up and put a rubber boot on the end to stop the brake fluid from dripping out. You have two mounting bolts right here and 3/8 socket or 10mm socket. Should work. Take this bolts all the way out. Set them aside. Now you can use a small pry bar or a flathead screwdriver or something to pry that out. And then just slide it right out. You might have to manipulate it a little bit because of the bleeder screw still on there, but that one's frozen on top of the cylinder being no good. So we're just going to leave it like that. So the best way to put a new one in is to take the bleeder screw out so you don't have to do much fighting with that. And I just set it aside. Now you can really set it in there. Make sure you have the right side up. Place it in there before you put the shoes even close to it. So I hold it on this side, then I'll take my two mounting screws and put them on the back. I just start them by hand so that way I can wiggle the wheel cylinder around to make sure it's centered. Once I know they're started evenly, I'll tighten that up. I'm just going to snug this up. Once they're snugged up, I will torque these to 25 foot-pounds. They're just a 6mm bolt, so you don't want to tighten them too much. Now you're going to reinstall the line, making sure there's no debris in the way. Start this by hand. Make sure it's snug. Now we can put our bleeder screw back in. That's a 5/16 or an 8mm, whichever fits best. Now we're lining the shoes back up. Okay, push that in spot. Make sure this piece is back in that little mounting hole that it's supposed to go in. Now you're going to pull the adjuster cable around that, guide it over. Now, a quick little trick to try to get that to stay is I'm going to either undo that spring, or see if I can get away with a pry bar. So just put the pry bar in there, push this up, put that cable right over. Make sure that plate's still holding there. Yeah, so you don't want it to pop out like that. Now, in order for that bracket to stay in there, we got to take this little spring off that arm. Then we can just boop, pull that up and it will stay with no pressure on that. Cable's over it. Put the eyelet over there. Now we can put the spring on and then we'll reattach that bottom spring on the adjuster lever. Now let's put the secondary spring on. And now we will put the spring back on the bracket. Make sure it's in the slot. Bring it up and over. Now you put your drum back on and get ready for bleeding. So now you're going to bleed this wheel cylinder. You're going to have to bleed both wheel cylinders because it's one line going to the back. So you don't want any air trapped anywhere. So I recommend all 4 wheels being bled. Even if you did 1 wheel cylinder, you can stop by gravity bleeding it. Make sure your master's full. Get a friend to help. The wheel torque spec is 85 to 110. We're going to do it at 100. Always do it in a star pattern.